first superhero movie ever made was this one right here. This is The Mark of Zorro from 1920, a silent film about a masked vigilante with a sword. Looks pretty different to the superhero movies of today, right? Well, this is what birthed a movement to bring superhero characters to the big screen, taking from a bunch of different source material. And who can blame them? Superhero movies got popularized for a reason. We all love seeing relatable characters have fantastical powers and achieve the impossible, allowing us to vicariously live through them in a way. Over the past decades, though, superhero movies have become way more popular, to the point where in a single year, we've seen 8, 9, or 10 superhero movies released. That seemed justified when Marvel reigned supreme and the MCU was being done justice through the filmmaking brilliance of the Russo brothers. But now the quality of the MCU has taken a severe nosedive. We all know that. And given that the MCU has been responsible for most of the quality superhero movies that have come out in the last decade, if Marvel's quality dips, the overall genre dips as well. Now, just to give an overview of the landscape, there are a few main studios that have significant stakes, per se, in the superhero genre. We have Marvel, of course, we have DC, owned by Warner Brothers, and then we have players like Sony, 20th Century Fox, etc., that have also released a bunch of movies in the genre. For the sake of simplicity, though, I'm going to touch on the 3 studios that have had the most movie successes: Marvel, DC, and Sony. Hopefully that'll help us understand what's going wrong with this genre at the moment and whether it's truly dead or there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Let's get right into it. Marvel's been king for the longest time. We all know that. They're responsible for 4 of the 10 highest grossing films of all time. 40% belongs to Marvel. That really puts things into perspective. They also have some of the highest rated superhero movies of all time. But that's taken quite a turn in the opposite direction since the release of Avengers Endgame. Whereas before, when Marvel used to release a movie, we all expected it to be good. Now that doesn't quite seem to be the case. These are the 9 Marvel movies released before 2021. Some of the best superhero movies of all time, I would say. All crossing 500 million in revenue easily and basically all getting 80% or more on Rotten Tomatoes. Since then, there's been 9 movies released. Those are these movies. Most didn't even fare even close to as well as the worldwide box office, and some of them have abysmal reviews, while others deserve worse than they got. I'm looking at you, Doctor Strange. That right there is the before and after that just shows how much worse Marvel has gotten over the years. It really is a tale of 2 halves since Avengers Endgame. To get to the why is significantly more complex, but honestly, it can be tracked down to one reason: focusing on quantity over quality. From phases 1 to 3 of the MCU, 23 movies were released, which sounds like a lot. They were all mostly great and took 11 years to accomplish. Now, with the advent of Disney Plus, though, Marvel has shifted its focus towards producing a multitude of shows and movies in a much shorter time. In the past 3 years alone, Marvel has released 9 TV shows, 2 specials, and 9 movies. What? That's 20 different releases that you have to keep track of in 3 years. Managing such a crazy extensive lineup while ensuring that they all cohesively fit together is an incredibly demanding task for a single studio. I mean, a dip in quality was bound to happen. The overload of releases has led to audience fatigue, has led to a lack of real hype for any one particular release, and has led to a challenge in maintaining the same level of interconnectedness between all these different projects that we've come to love about the MCU. Also, let's take a moment to look at the CGI. What in God's hell is this? What am I looking at? Honestly, some of the movie releases have been great. Spider-Man No Way Home, for example. But until they slow down releases, we're gonna continue to miss the old Marvel. Thankfully, Bob Iger knows what's up. Now we've got to talk about Marvel's mediocre smaller brother, DC. Realistically, for the past 20 years, DC movies have mostly been overshadowed by the MCU, let's be honest. There are exceptions, of course, like the Batman trilogy or Joker, Other decent releases like the Suicide Squad or Wonder Woman as well, but mostly DC movies have been ass, for lack of a better term. Only 17% of DC movies have gotten a score better than 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, compared to 38% for Marvel. That's a big difference. And here's the most damning thing. Although DC have released 12 more movies than Marvel, 12 more, they've made 14 billion in worldwide box office versus Marvel's nearly 13 billion. Like, Marvel has doubled them in worldwide box office with way less movies. None of DC's last 5 movies have even cracked 500 million in worldwide box office. And just for some perspective, because I know that might not mean anything to you, the Smurfs movie grossed more than 500 million at the worldwide box office. Something's going wrong when the Smurfs movie is beating you at the box office consistently. DC's lack of consistent success can be attributed to a few reasons. They rushed to catch up to Marvel's success, not really giving time to properly flesh out the DCEU, making most movies lack cohesion between them. They lacked a united creative direction as well, with Zack Snyder, Warner Brothers, and fans all seemingly having their own take on how certain characters should be portrayed. Does this mean that DC is dead though? Quite the contrary, actually. Warner Brothers are finally moving in a different direction by appointing James Gunn as co-CEO of DC Studios, the famous director for the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, as well as a contributor to the last 2 Avengers movies. This has fans super excited. Even I'm excited. I've always been more of a Marvel fan. It seems like he'll be giving a refreshing, risky take on the DC universe, which is exactly the kind of creative change the studio needs at this point, realistically. Now, let's talk about Sony, the studio holding the rights to Spider-Man and all related characters. They actually struck a deal with Marvel to allow them to include Spider-Man in the MCU in exchange for producing the solo Spider-Man films. So clearly these 2 studios are entrenched, but for the sake of this video, we're going to look at Sony separately since they've made, I'd say, a significant impact on the superhero scene. Sony may not have churned out as many releases as Marvel and DC, but their influence runs deep. They played a pivotal role in shaping the superhero landscape, especially when they dropped the very first Spider-Man movie. Released back in 2002, it's a true superhero classic, and it introduced us to one of the best feelings ever, in my opinion. The Green Goblin. Shout out to Willem Dafoe. After that initial triumph, Sony's Spider-Man journey hit a bit of a rough patch. Spider-Man 2, 3, and the Amazing Spider-Man series didn't quite hit the mark. It seemed like they were struggling to find their rhythm, but then enter Tom Holland's MCU version, and things took a thrilling turn. All 3 of Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies not only crushed it at the box office, but also garnered fantastic reviews. So that corner of the Marvel universe is alive, well, and kicking, and there's even talk of a 4th Spider-Man movie in the works, which is pretty damn exciting. This might be a hot take, but I'd go as far as to say that ever since the release of Avengers Endgame, Sony has been kind of carrying the superhero scene. They've been dishing out some fantastic live-action movies, and let's not forget they've made some major waves in animation. I mean, seriously, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse are 2 animated gems. By the way, check out my Across the Spider-Verse review right here. Sony's animation game has been off the charts, and they've breathed fresh life into the Spider-Man universe with Miles Morales. So I'd say that this corner of the superhero genre has been doing great. Props to Sony. Given everything we've talked about though, is the superhero genre really as dead as everyone's making it out to be? No. Honestly, although it's been an intense, rough few years with the constant mediocre releases, there have been a few bright spots, and every studio seems to be heading in a good direction with fresh faces and new ideas. The superhero genre isn't dead. It's evolving, and we can look forward to more exciting stories, characters, and ideas in the future. I, for one, cannot damn wait. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.